I do have to give a shout out to the podcast, the Couch GM Pod.
Washington State set to make another East Coast trip to James Madison University, 9-1 JMU. They took care of business at home versus Louisiana Tech, 28-3. And first off, have to give a shout out to Kaio Patu, the play of the game right on the first drive of Louisiana Tech's fake punt here. He just makes an athletic move. He's a redshirt freshman safety, just a special teams guy. But, he had his opportunity and he had a big play in this game. It's basically a 14-point swing, stops their potential drive for 7, and then WSU on their short field. So shout out to him. And I guess just initial takeaways from this game, the defense stood out. One stat is that Washington State has now given up 7 total touchdowns over the past 6 games. And that's including games versus Ole Miss and Virginia. So just the top tier defense that we're seeing from Washington State is going to hopefully help heading to James Madison University, where they are averaging a win at home by 30.8 points. So Dylan, what are your initial thoughts on what you saw?
Yeah, the defense just continues to just be a juggernaut in the last half of this season. And really, we're going to struggle next year defensively as opposed to this year because there's so many fifth-year seniors that are on the back end. You look at Matthew Durant, Tucker Large, Cale Reeder. There's just Caleb Francel, Parker McKenna. These guys have been fantastic. They're in their spots. They're never out of position. The tackling's gotten much better. There was that stretch, North Texas, UW, where there was bad tackling. The coaching staff has been fantastic. I mean, you're seeing these guys elevate players. Malachi Taisi has just been a absolute blunt force object over the last couple of weeks. And to the point where it's like, oh, gosh, get him off the field. Like, I don't want to see him with another 3 or 4 sacks this season. We might not be able to retain him. And that's where we're going to come in with the Cougar Collective. We've just a quick side note, Connor, talk about the what the collective's done over the last week and a half.
Yeah, so since Cantwell's statement, and we started covering it, basically her saying that WSU is last in NIL among new Pac-12 members, we've got confirmation from the collective that there have been over 150 new members since that talk at the Cougs' first show. So shout out to all of you that are joining the collective. And here are just some of the comments that we've seen on our past 2 videos talking about the NIL. Again, screenshot this QR code if you're watching.
No, shout out Kalen, though. Never went to Wazoo, joined the Army instead, but I donate every month.
Yeah, let's go.
Thanks
for your service and go Cougs, man.
Hell yeah.
And then of course Larry Fetter is a regular commenter talking about NIL. He donated $1,000. He's not just all talk. He's also putting his money where his mouth is. So scan this, join the cause, and when it gets to the referred by slot, enter Cougs on the couch, enter the Couch GM, whatever you'd like, and let's keep just working this up. I mean, it's awesome to see the push.
Larry, that's big time. Love seeing those types of comments. And you know what? Hey, we have also seen on the other side of things some other comments where folks are like, hey, I paid 4 or 5 years of tuition. I don't owe anything else to WSU. And I can see where you're coming from there. But let me say this on the other aspect of it. As a living alum, as a fan, like, don't we have some onus on ourselves to see our university in the best possible position it can be? And granted, this is not where we want to be in pay for play, but it's where we're at. When I watched Josh Meredith catch a 17-yard touchdown reception, all right, that makes me feel good about, the monthly donations. So there are those aspects too, but we're just trying to get the word out, be transparent, and just get more folks into this, because we've seen a number of comments stating, hey, like, a lot of folks don't know. So keep, raising awareness. But going back into the defensive side of things, he had 3 sacks last week against Louisiana Tech. Isaac Terrell with a half a sack. He's now leading the Cougs with 5 on the season. But Taisi has just been a brute force. He's been fun to watch. And really, like, the entire defensive line for what they've been able to do this season. You have bounce back guys from G5 programs. You've done it without Caden Beatty as well as Mike Sanjo. You've had some significant injuries, Ram Stevenson out for a couple weeks at a time, but it's really just been the next man up attitude. And one guy you can point to is like a Jack Janikowski. I didn't expect to see him like actually having legit reps this year. He's got a couple sacks already. Fantastic to see.
One other stat, this is from a Coug Fan article. Check out cougfan.com, subscribe to their premium membership for all things WSU athletics. Of tight ends with at least 50 pass blocking snaps, Adam Mole-Filet has a 74.0 grade and is 5th in the country in overall blocking for a tight end. So shout out to him and what he's doing. He's taken big steps after transferring from Michigan State this past year.
Yeah, and he's got 3 receptions this year. I mean, that is the definition of a guy that's bringing his hard hat and lunch pail to work every day. That's not worried about, the glitz and the glamour, where like the AJ Brown type things, what the Eagles are dealing with, the diva wide receiver, diva tight end. He's going out there, he's putting his head down, and he's smashing skulls. So it's fun to see, and senior leadership like that too. I mean, coming in from Michigan State and just knowing your role. I mean, there's so much to be said about Coach Rogers and this staff and their ability to get a buy-in from all 85, 90 guys on this roster.
And we have a great show today. We have Adam Lewis, who's a contributor for cougfan.com. We have Mkristo Bruce. We also have Jack Fitzpatrick, who is a contributor for JMU Sports News, who was in the news recently this past week. We got a great show, but current line for the game is JMU favored by 13.5 points. The over-under is 42.5.
Wow.
Game time is set for 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern, and this is going to be on ESPN Plus. So make sure to sign up for the extra membership.
$13 membership to watch the Cougs if you don't have ESPN Plus. But yeah, well, you want to know why WSU and the Pac-12 in general didn't want to be on an ESPN Plus broadcast platform, ESPNU in general. Watch the broadcast this weekend and you'll know why.
And before we get into it, there's a couple clips here that we want to go through.
This clip is going to be Jimmy on what it's like to fight for bowl eligibility these last 2 games, and kind of what it means to the seniors.
Yeah, for myself and the staff, it's moving in the right direction with a new team, and it will help in recruiting, obviously. But for me, it's not about anything other than trying to give our best to this team with a lot of seniors that have invested a lot, not just in this program, but had a faith in coming with us that they would have a special season. And although we've let some games get away from us, and we can't look back at that now, we have an opportunity to close out 2 games, but nothing is more pivotal than this one that we have ahead of us. So it's kind of where I put my focus. It's not necessarily in the bowl in itself. Those in this program know I talk very little about those things. It's more about, hey, we have an opportunity this week. We need to improve on the things that we didn't do.
Another opportunity. I mean, this is big time. This is a chance for Jimmy Rogers to have his staple victory this season. Other than, let's take a look at the 5 wins. What do you think the staple victory is so far? I have it in my mind. It's Colorado State.
Yeah, Colorado State for sure.
In my opinion,
the only big win.
You lose 59-24 to UW. You come back and
it's at Colorado State.
At Colorado State, you win 20-3. That this week is your staple victory. Number 21, James Madison, a chance to have your first top 25 victory as a head coach at WSU, a chance to earn bowl eligibility this week. Get it done this weekend. Let's not go into Oregon State and have to worry about winning that game. 1 game at a time, but I truly think WSU is getting 13.5 points from a Sun Belt school. Granted, it's on the road. I'm taking that. Hypothetically speaking, if you were to tell me, what are you going to take this weekend? I'm taking 13.5 points. That's crazy to me. When you take a look at ESPN's FPI, WSU's 68th overall, only 2 schools have a better rating on James Madison's schedule. Louisville, they lost 28-14, and Old Dominion. I just think this defense is playing so well that it doesn't matter who they're going to see on the other side of the field, offensively speaking. They're going to be where they need to be, and they're just playing with a ton of confidence right now.
This is a Washington State team that went to Ole Miss, lost by 3 points. Then the next week went to Virginia, number 18 ranked, lost by 2 points. I just think they head to the East Coast for a third time. Like you say this throughout the podcast, they're not going to have another sad flight home from the East Coast. You know, they have bowl game implications. JMU is looking to get to the playoffs. It's going to be a sold out game this weekend. They're ready and battle tested for this matchup, and I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. And you definitely want to hear the JMU reporter's prediction for the game score, because Dylan and I don't agree. But
I don't know if I agree with that. So check in later with Jack Fitzpatrick's interview. But it's all going to come down to Zevi Eckhouse and Danny Freud. And like, can we not be so vanilla? Can you keep it in third and manageable? Can you run the ball? Can you continuously get first downs, drain the clock, keep the ball on the offensive side of the field, and drain that clock? And from Danny Freund's perspective, open up the playbook. We're in week 11. Let it rip. All right. Like, at this point in the season, we have got to let it rip. It just seems like every second half this season has been tough. Like Adam says, you know, we seem to have a pretty good jump and start offensively on a philosophical side of things in terms of X's and O's. But once we get to the second half, it's tough sledding. And I did a little bit of a deep dive into the initial second half drives for WSU this year. There's been 10 of them. Only 3 have ended in points, 3 touchdowns, 6 3-and-outs, and then 1 possession where they were able to get a first down. So 7 of those 10 possessions resulted in 1 combined first down. And that is a major issue, is getting into halftime and making the necessary adjustments on offense and not just living in this vanilla style play calling.
And then another piece of news that came out is Devin Ellison is no longer on Washington State's roster. Here's a clip of Jimmy Rogers.
Was that your decision or his decision, or how did that?
We just decided to part ways. I wish Devin the best, and good kid, and wish nothing but the best for him moving forward.
What kind of led to that whole situation?
That's for me and Devin.
So that's a bit of a shocker. I mean, there's speculation, like we have some insight on what might have happened, but we're just going to let that be. And he was the biggest NIL signing this past offseason for Washington State.
Yeah, and you know what? We've got to talk about, like, these are the nightmare scenarios of NIL. But at the end of the day, still retain Josh Meredith. You know, was able to bring in Jeremiah Noga. And Jimmy Rogers said this in the press conference, and he's speaking mostly on retainment. We're not going to bat 1,000. We're not going to bat 100. But the point is getting to us to a stable point in the collective, in our NIL, where we can go, okay, hey, these are who we need to retain. And then you go into the portal and you start working your magic and, okay, what do we need? Who needs to come in? Those are the horror stories, but that's college sports for you in general. I mean, last year, Falili, our offensive lineman, before the San Diego State game, basically demanded more NIL money or he was going to take a red shirt. So he basically stiffed up the collective halfway through the year last year. And you know what? From what we've heard that Devin and the playbook didn't really mingle. So Coach Rogers wasn't really saying too much on why he left the program. Obviously, I think this is our first time seeing Coach Rogers and the program philosophy like, hey, Devin Ellison maybe wasn't meeting what WSU and Coach Rogers wants from their players. So he's out the door. And I'll be honest, when the initial recruitment happened with Devin Ellison and I was taking a look at who his agent was, basically a used car salesman of an agent, those are some of the things you can kind of see on the outside before he entered the program. It just didn't, it almost seemed like your Uncle Dennis type of situation with Kawhi Leonard, and his Uncle Dennis is always around. There's just so many different used car salesmen now involved with NIL, and Coach Rodgers said it in his press conference. It's like you've got these agents reaching out to their players, telling them how much they're worth nowadays. So the re-recruitment is just such a big aspect of where college football is now, and it's tough, but at the end of the day, like, you need NIL to replace these guys. One piece of video we wanted to get to this week was from JMU's head football coach, Bob Chesney, who is apparently UCLA's #1 target as a football coach. I listened to the whole duration of his press conference. Not one question asking Coach Chesney about all these reports, which is wild in and of itself. It seems like JMU is just walking on eggshells over there. But here is Chesney on WSU's defense.
They're just aggressive. The defense, it starts up front. The defensive line is really good. The corners are, as quick, physical, sticky in coverage as you can imagine. The safeties are playing downhill, and the linebackers can run sideline to sideline. They are a complete team. And I know their record doesn't say it, and you're going to look at it and have your own questions, but I think that the Ole Miss game, the UVA game, those are two that stand out to me that certainly say the type of ball that they're capable of on the defensive side. And I said it earlier, when you can run in these short yardage situations and you're one of the best in the country in short yardage situations, that speaks about your toughness. And then when your defense is really, really good as well, that speaks about your toughness. This is absolutely a very tough team that's coming in here. And this will be, two tough teams that get a chance to square up against each other on Saturday, and we're excited for it.
Yeah, a lot of parallels too with Coach Chesney. He coached at Holy Cross before he got to James Madison, played against South Dakota State and Jimmy Rogers when Jimmy was the defensive coordinator on that 2022 national championship team for the Jackrabbits. Matthew Sluka was the quarterback then. Obviously, the UNLV NIL guy that decided to leave the team because he wasn't getting compensated what he wanted. Another Falili situation, but turned out where he didn't actually stick with the team. So there is some similarities and some parallels there, because Coach Chesney went into talking about just some of their blitz packages and kind of what the defense looks. He says there's a lot of similarities with this WSU defense to SDSU's at the time, and there's still some players from that team they're going to be playing and starting on defense for WSU this week. So this is going to be a fun game. 10 a.m. start. You've got this kind of whole Marvel side of things. You're going to have Spider-Man, Hulk, and Captain America on one side, Iron Man on one side of the helmet, and the JMU logo on the other. So it's going to be interesting. But, Jack, who we interviewed about JMU, he said, hey, look, if WSU fans are coming out to party, they picked the right stadium. He just said, be wary. There might be some JMU fans asking, hey, do you want to take a shotgun with me? You want to do that? You want to take a shot? I'll tell you what. The Cougs are going to booze. They'll do it.
If you get that on video, DM the Couch GM, your little clip you might just see on next week's episode. But before we get into it, make sure to check out cougfan.com, subscribe to their premium membership for all things WSU athletics. If you're thinking of buying, selling, or refinancing in the next year, reach out to myself. I'm a mortgage lender full-time. You can visit lenderconnorwebb.com or reach out to MK if you prefer to work with him. And if you need a little flight to LA from Phoenix, he might be able to help out with that as well. And then Dylan.
Yeah, if you want to lock in that energy rate for the next 20 to 25 years, give me a text or a call. But before we start the show with our guests, we've got to pull out one last highlight from last week. Kyle Williams, his first touchdown reception as a Patriot.
Final seconds of the first quarter. They fake it to Henderson. Tony, you're right. Going down the field. They got the big play. There he goes. Running down the sideline is Williams. Williams, the rookie, has the touchdown.
Love to see that, Stephon Diggs on the other side of the field. You'd figure that they'd be able to get some more usage out of Kyle Williams. Let's hope that this is the start of something special. So, yeah, good to see. And with that, let's get into our interview with Mkristo. MK, thanks for hopping on. Let's start with this clip from this game against LA Tech. First drive for LA Tech. It's Kaio Patu with the bat down of the fake punt. This completely changes the game from the get-go. It could have been, them driving, going down to get 7. Instead, it gives Washington State a short field. 14-point swing. What was this play to you? And then the defense, the rest of the game.
I mean, this is such a gutsy call, from, on the road coming out and definitely a momentum shifter kind of play. So, for them to come out and try that off the jump was, I'm going to come out, make a statement. We're going to switch the momentum and we're going to come at you, on your home field. So I love the call. I think defensively and special teams wise has just been carrying this football team week in and week out. I know we're going to talk about the offense here, but absolute freaking game changer situation right there. They get that first down. That could have changed the trajectory of the game. Would they have won? Probably not. But, would the game have been different? For sure, just because of that one play.
And shout out to Kyle, red shirt freshman, 5'11", 175 is safety, special teams, special plays, special players. He played out.
Yes, brother.
Yes, I didn't know MK was rehearsed with sketch. All right.
Oh, I love it.
Well, and Coach Rogers said post game that Kyle's put himself into that position. Yeah. Giving himself a position on special teams. Might not be at the top of the depth chart in terms of where the safeties are. It's tough when you have Cale Reeder, Matthew Durance, Tucker Large, 3 seniors. News as well coming from this press conference on Monday that Cale Reeder is going to try and play this weekend. So we'll see how that goes. But I don't want to talk about the offense yet. It's a 28-3 victory, MK. We've got you on the show. What else did you see? 3 sacks in the game. Obviously, Evan Bullock goes out, and WSU pretty much knew what to expect with Trey Kukuk and the running quarterback, but we're going to see 2 dual threat quarterbacks this weekend, the starter Barnett and then Sluka, the kid who took off from UNLV because he wasn't getting his NIL bag last season.
Surprised that he ended up at James Madison, but that was a weird one too, where I would have thought that, the city of LV, they would have, scrounged up some kind of money down the street on the strip or something. But that was really surprising. The whole situation got weird. But, in this land of NIL, I was talking to some of the old players and they're like, out of Washington State, why aren't we getting these players and doing these things? Like, we got to pay. Like, someone's got to pay. And someone was telling me, Washington State's got the money and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I feel like there's no way to put the cat back in the bag. I'm going to answer a couple of different questions here. So with the NIL, you can't just open the floodgates and be like, you know what, let's bring it back and put bumpers on it, right? There's going to have to be some kind of something, and we don't know what it is yet, right? But there has to be some kind of something that comes in to kind of regulate-ish, because it is just completely wide open. The way that kids can transfer unlimitedly, it seems like transferring from team to team. I remember going down 2 years ago. I was on the sideline. I forgot what player it was, but he had 2 different teams tattooed on his arm. And I was like, that's not cool. I'm just going to let you know right now, that is not cool. But that's the landscape we're in right now, where there's a lot of quit. And I want to find a way there's a happy medium that we can have a little resilience or, adversity. How do we overcome that? So I went on a tangent on that. I'm going to bring this back. But I think, our defense is playing at a very high level. And I have to give a shout out to Jimmy Rogers because he has these guys believing. And oftentimes we've seen special teams come in and just really just and oftentimes, change the trajectory of a game because of, a weird punt like we saw in the first game, right? That might change the field position right there and put your defense in a bad position, right? Or, you see this play right here where that could have changed the momentum. So, I'm loving what our defense, I'm loving what our special teams are doing. I'm struggling what Zeb is doing right now, but also you see these flashes of brilliance with them, right? So.
Couple things I'll add. So we just got an update from the collective. Over 150 new members have joined the collective since that Cougs first show, where Betsy mentioned that essentially Washington State is last among the new Pac-12 and NIL. So just wanted to shout out everyone that's donating, that's joining the cause, making the push. It's really encouraging to see. And then separately, Washington State now has allowed just 7 touchdowns over the past 6 games, whereas Washington State last season gave up 7 touchdowns in 2 separate games. It's just a night and day difference.
It's a 9-day difference. And you think about this, Zeb, you don't throw 2 picks and it's a different game, right? So, shout out to him for not throwing interceptions this game, right?
Yeah.
But that's a huge momentum changer. And if your defense, if your offense can throw 2 picks or have 2 to 3 turnovers and your defense still keeps you within 7, man, that's, look at the Seahawks, you throw 4 interceptions, you still lose by 2. That's impossible. That's an impossible stat to still almost win a game throwing 4 picks, right? So again, shout out to the defense. Shout out to Jimmy for having those boys ready.
Guest number 2, our sweet prince, our guest columnist writer at CougFan.com, Adam Lewis, also formerly a beat writer there. Adam, let's just jump right into your tweet last week. I'm glad WSU has been able to raise money, but I feel like this should be going to NIL until we can actually retain our rosters in football and men's basketball. Nobody will care about flashing LED lights if you're not competing for championships. I 100% agree. Some folks in our comments disagree. But this is regarding the new scoreboard, sound system, and LED lighting. Just kind of take us into your initial thoughts when you see the numbers. And obviously, hey, the game day atmosphere needs to be revamped. But in my opinion, maybe yours, I would rather see our roster looking better and have a 9-3, 10-2 season, and then putting, money into that.
Yeah, I think when I initially saw the number reported, it was like by PullmanRadio.com. I thought I was really taken aback by just the overall figure. I know that we need to bring in a couple more million, right, before the LED lights and new field turf actually get, before construction starts on that. But my thought was like, dang, we haven't raised that much for NIL combined for football and basketball here over the past couple of years. We're trailing, as our president said, a lot of members in the new Pac-12. So to see that amount of money going towards stadium improvements when we just redid the stadium, 13 years ago, so like not that long ago in the whole scope of college football renovations, I was a little surprised, and that's what led to the tweet. What I later learned, and just talking to some people who are closely connected to the program, like it wasn't an either or sort of proposition. WSU has, contrary to like what we may think, there are some deep pocketed donors in Eastern Washington who are willing to put a lot of money towards the football program, but they're not big on NIL. They would rather devote money for a more lasting sort of product, like a new stadium light or new stadium lights, new turf. So they still need a couple million, right, by I think mid-December to get that project to move forward. But so I later learned it's not an either or thing. I'm not like upset about it or anything, but I would love to see some of those old Eastern Washington money get with the times a little bit and help out on the NIL front. That's kind of where I land on it. I know that Jimmy Rogers himself is like a pretty big driving force behind this push to upgrade the stadium. So, I don't want to hear next year if we lose by 4 touchdowns in the Apple Cup that our NIL sort of roster isn't up to par, because I know that he's a big proponent of this, and he should be. He wants to build this thing from the ground up, and it is a rebuild. So it should be interesting to see over these next couple weeks if we can close the deal on it.
And you guys have to admit, the turf looks awful. Like that Apple Cup logo consistently, you see the imprint the entire season. It's like, what are we doing here? But yeah, just kind of working off of that point, like it can be both. And that's kind of the argument that I tried to make with Dylan last week. The initial thought of like how much money is in this project, but who's to say that both can't happen at the same time? Some people, like you mentioned, the Eastern donors that might want their name to be affiliated with the lights or the scoreboard or XYZ, whereas with NIL it wouldn't, or they don't believe in the concept of NIL, which that's just a blank argument. But at least just seeing an investment of something happening with funds in the university is a positive. Obviously, you have to hope that the NIL push is going to be as serious as that private donation.
Yeah. I mean, there's a ton of people who still care. I think that's like the big takeaway here, and is something that, like, when we first got essentially relegated to the lower rung of college football, I thought maybe that people would check out, and there are some weeks attendance wise where we're not drawing, obviously, like against Louisiana Tech in late November, but there are people with money who still care about WSU and want to see them succeed in this new iteration of the Pac-12 next year. But it's NIL, for whatever reason, with our fan base, is still a fairly hard sell. I think there are 240,000 living WSU alumni. What is it, like maybe a little over 2,000 members are in the Cougar Collective, donating directly to it. So those guys do a great job. But I think what we saw with like the change in President Cantwell deciding to make a change with the athletic director, that there needs to be a new push to sort of engage the group of fans who are going to give money to that segment, because we don't have Uncle Phil necessarily, but there is money out there. If somebody cares enough, you just got to get a few, right? And then you could really change sort of the dynamic of the WSU program.
There's 35,000 people in that dumb diehard Cougs page. 35,000 people are in there.
Yeah.
And it's just wild to me. If you could get 10% of that group into the Cougar Collective, we've talked to folks at the Collective and they said, we've tried in that group, and it's basically post, rinse, and repeat in there, because you get a bunch of older Cougs that don't want to deal with this. We had a comment last week that said, you know what, and he was irritated in the comment section. I paid my tuition and my time at WSU, but there should be another aspect to that. Like, why should we not, as alums and fans, want to see our school in a better position while we're here on this earth? It's a short amount of time. It is a very short amount of time. So how do you think we get to kind of switching this narrative that's around the WSU alum with NIL?
Yeah, I think to add to your point too, I think there's more than 40,000 WSU license plates as well in the state of Washington. So like, is there a way we can like carve
how much is that a month or a year?
It's like I pay for one, and I think it's about $50 a year.
Yeah,
So not quite as much as giving $240 a year to the Cougar Collective. And hey, like, I understand too right now, like, the economy isn't great. Paying 18 to 22-year-old athletes, a part of your paycheck is like, it's a new concept. And you have the problems with like the Devin Ellisons of the world, the Justice Sheffields of the world, who we gave, a significant amount to, or Angel Johnson, bless his heart. I think we gave him a decent amount of money and, just hasn't produced. So one thing I would love to see with our collective is, and I'm sure they'll say we can't do this for, competitive reasons, but like a little bit more transparency too, on like where the money's going, for some of the players. You don't have to like list the whole roster like a Spotrac side, but I think people would appreciate it who are giving money, right? To see what that, at least celebrate the successes of it, like what would be the harm in that? We don't have to write articles about Devin Ellison, but I'm sure there's been a range. I mean, WSU was kind of at the forefront with like Cam Ward in bringing him over. What was the college he played at in Texas? But
Incarnate Word.
Incarnate Word. Yeah. So I would love us to see us celebrate our successes a little more from the collective side. I think there's a range of opportunities like to generate more revenue. We're not even like making our layups right now. Like, you could add student fees, you can make, sports passes mandatory, send that to NIL, tack on some student fees. It wouldn't be a huge deal. You could add it to your season ticket. Like, why aren't WSU season ticket holders. I think we have, it was a little bit over 10,000. That should be mandatory. You should, like, University of Tennessee has a, I think they call it like a talent fee. I think that's one aspect of it. I also think we need to like think bigger and then just like asking more and more people for $18.90 a month. Easier said than done, but like creating some sort of corporate partnership, leveraging, WSU. There's a lot of really successful WSU alumni out there, and getting more into that world. I know there's some work going on behind the scenes to do that, but like we gotta get some money from either corporate interests or like private capital or somewhere else than just like, going through Eastern Washington and asking, Joe Blow from Pasco to give. We got to get your $240 a month because
that's great. You should.
Right. I mean, there's got to be more. It's got to be a double-sided, sort of thing. And I know that WSU's trying to do that, and that was a big reason. Like they moved on from Ann McCoy because she's just fundraising was not her forte. But yeah, I would love to see, just give us something, give us some sort of positive. Like San Diego State got $5 million from the guy who makes the terrible sunglasses. So
yeah, Blenders. Cannot wait to drive down the road later today and see Magoon Guath with his Blenders sunglasses on. But this segues into our next talking point. Ann McCoy, 20 years at the school, mostly in the deputy AD role, admin side of things. She takes the job, only gets 8 months with President Cantwell. And a week before her firing, President Cantwell at Cougs First in Spokane stating, hey, we are $20 million. We need $20 million. We need to get ahead in NIL. We're currently last in the new landscape of the Pac-12, which is surprising to hear with the Utah States, a Texas State, even, perhaps a Fresno State. What did you take from that? And what does WSU, obviously we need somebody that can come in and find money, but are we looking for somebody that's already had experience as an AD, or are we trying to find somebody that's, maybe looking to step into a bigger role?
Yeah, I don't think we're last, and not to put my conspiracy hat on there, but I don't believe that. I think we're bottom middle-ish. I mean, how many teams are there? 8 or 9? I bet we were like fifth. I bet we're like fifth or sixth, maybe at worst. But she was clearly like trying to get attention, and it worked. There was a surge of donations, right, to the Cougar Collective after she said that. Similar, Jake Dickert did a similar thing like early on, and when NIL became sort of a big deal after we lost to Oregon State, and then he was like, well, they're out fundraising us 10-1. So what I'm looking for in a new AD, I don't know. Like, this is like a college administrator job. It's like not something I personally get like real fired up for. But like, I would love to see them at least talk to some WSU, legends. Like Bill Moose should be on the phone. You should be asking
really?
Like who, not as the next candidate, but like who you're going to go after. Right. Like who's like tap into his network, tap into Jim Sturck's network. He was WSU's AD when I was in school. He's almost 70 now, lives in Bellingham, and is the AD at Western, but was athletic director at Missouri for over a decade. So like tap into like the guy, and he was successful. I mean, hired Dick and Tony Bennett when he was here. And so I would just like tap into like that sort of knowledge base, and then and try to work through maybe their network and bring in, obviously we need a dynamic fundraiser, somebody who's personable, and able to maybe, latch onto those big donors and convince them that NIL is important. We also need somebody who can tell WSU's story to the Board of Regents to get more institutional support. I don't think Ann was doing that. I'm sure President Cantwell is trying, but I think WSU receives, and you guys can check me on this afterward, but like somewhere in $5 to $6 million in institutional support. So like from the general fund to the athletic department. And if you want to guess what Boise State is, I think they're above 20 million in terms of like, so, right. So if we want to, sort of compete in this new world where our television revenue that's coming in annually is, it's probably 20 million less. That's probably what the $20 million number came from President Cantwell. You need somebody who's going to be able to tell that story to the regents and like put enough pressure on them, I guess, to sort of at least elevate that amount of institutional support that's going to athletics. Because as Bill Moose said when I was a student, it is the front porch to the university. And if you've looked over time, the biggest years of enrollment to WSU are following the Rose Bowl trip, following the NCAA tournament trips, following the Minshew year in 2018. So it's all connected. I don't necessarily love it, like from a personal, it's kind of crazy. Like if you like take a step back, 10,000 foot view and be like, should we be giving more money to the Murrow School? Sometimes I do wonder that, but why not both? So, but as far as next AD, I would love to see us either just go and talk to some of those legends and see what they think and make a hire.
Going back to the regents, like you say, hey, we need somebody that can paint this picture for them. I mean, what have they been looking at for the last 3 years?
I don't fully. They're volunteer positions, right? They do have some new board members. I think they're like the chair went left last year, so there is some fresh blood in there. I think Howard Wright is like a kind of magnet and like a hospitality business management guy with connections to athletics who just joined the board. So I think that would be positive. I know Cantwell's initial conversations with them, she was like, we need to get over like the Cougs sort of we're the underdog BS that sort of has lingered over us for a really long time. And granted, she's not the first leader to say that, but I know it was met. I think like the board cheered. So I hope they're moving into like a more pro athletics sort of, stance with everything. I know that there's like a ton of budgetary challenges, on the state level facing like institutions like WSU sort of across the country with pullbacks in federal funding. So I know that they're probably managing more than athletics, but like it is the biggest. I mean, if WSU becomes irrelevant in football and men's basketball and basically those two, like enrollment will drop over time. And like you've seen enrollment numbers kind of struggle these past few years post-COVID.
Across the nation too. Yeah.
Across the nation. But like WSU has done under Kirk Schultz did particularly poorly. And I think that's 100% a reflection of his leadership. So I think anything, I love, it seems like Cantwell's just like, I'm going to do everything the opposite of what my predecessor did. And I'm totally down. I'm totally down with that.
So Cantwell, is there something to be said? Because the big fish in the pond right now is Jamie Kern Lima. I mean, let's be honest. She sold her IT cosmetics brand for $1.2 billion to L'Oreal, the first female CEO of a L'Oreal brand. Is there something to say, hey, now that we have a female president here, is that maybe a way to approach a partnership? Because it's not easy to bring somebody on to the scene like a Jamie Kern Lima. We don't even know if she even went to WSU football games when she was at school. So there's a lot to be unknown, but I know the university behind the scenes is trying to work with her. Is there an angle with our new president to get that done?
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any inside,
I know you don't, but
about it, but I know that they have didn't she come to campus last year to be honored for an award? So I'm sure they've been trying to foster that relationship. And yeah, I think it's the only billionaire alumni with WSU right now. I don't know about her like sports fandom and whether she's like big into it. I mean, it's hard to speculate there, but it would be great if she wanted to become more involved, be on the
L'Oreal Field.
Lord, yeah, whatever you want. Like all of our corporate sponsorships like need to be re-examined. Like we're Gisa Field now. That partnership is not paying us that much money.
You see how much Arizona football just got for their
yeah, I think 65 million over like 20 years.
65 million.
Yeah, we're not in that neighborhood.
Not even in the ballpark.
Yeah. And so it's we need a total revamp. I think we just got to push as hard as we can over these next 4 or 5 years. Maybe, it breaks off at the end of that and it was all for naught. But I think the way I'm approaching it, most Cougs is like, just give these next 4 or 5 years all we have to try to maintain some sense of relevancy, and then let the chips fall where they may.
Hey, Dad Gang, massive hat company, or it's an up-and-coming brand. Josh Naylor was just wearing Dad Gang hat the other day after signing with the Mariners. I mean, maybe we're trying to get them on the podcast. Shout out to Dad Gang if you're watching this, but
they can't even
you never know.
I think I bullied what's the Branded Bills into making some WSU hats. I kept messaging them on Instagram being like, where's your WSU version? I'll buy multiple. And they finally did release a few. So, but yeah, it's been frustrating to see us sort of, the lack of direction, right? For like a number of years with our athletic department. Like we rolled out, I think it was like this initiative to raise $100,000 last month. I don't know, for the Cougar Athletic Fund. Did you guys see that on the website? And I think I maybe got one email, and it was yeah, right. You didn't know, but it was just AI slop, marketing slop. I was like, what? I read the whole thing like 3 times. I was like, I don't even know what you're freaking asking me for. I gave $100, but I was like, what are we? I think it's up to 85,000, and then there's maybe a match to go to scholarships. But I'm like, I'll do this for free. Or I'm sure there's a lot of willing alums who can help you sort of bring more publicity to this push.
And transparency too. I mean, that's like some of the, one of the bigger things for some of these older alums. And you might not be older. Hey, you might just have $20 in your checking account and can't get into the 1890 club. But what I wanted to jump into a little X's and O's as we'll finish up here.
I got to go feed my kid. You guys can continue. I got to hop off though.
Hey,
sorry.
No
Priorities,
baby Cal. We'll end with this, but I did a little bit of digging yesterday because it just feels like every second half first drive has just been nothing. And sure enough, 10 drives, 3 touchdowns, I think 5 3-and-outs, 6 3-and-outs, and 1 drive where they got a first down. So 7 of those 10 drives amounted to 1 first down. And at this point, it's like, is there even anything being done at halftime offensively? Because they just look completely different. Virginia, Ole Miss. I mean, there's plenty of examples.
Yeah, it's like we come out and we have a pretty good script in the first half. Like the offense looks okay, right? And then second half, just as you've said, the playbook seems to shrink. I think that was like my biggest takeaway, like watching Louisiana Tech. Like it seemed like we were running the same, 4 or 5 sort of plays from really basic formations. And like maybe that too is like just managing the lead and having a defensive, minded head coach in Jimmy. And maybe he's asking Freund to like dial it back. Maybe it's partly they don't trust Zevi 100% with some of his turnover issues, but it's like, you're 5-5. Like the season is, you're not playing for much other than, a very mid-tier bowl game. Like let it rip. Like, I don't understand the caution, I guess, that we're seeing. I mean, it was really bad, obviously, in the Oregon State game. It was just all punts the second half. So
I'm still fixing up my drywall.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. I would love to see them like come out in the second half, just like throw a wrinkle in there, run a flea. We ran a flea flicker early in the season. Like, do something a little.
Has there only been one trick play that we can literally circle back to? Is that flea flicker? Because
flea flicker, yeah, during the Toledo game, and then maybe the onside kick in the Apple Cup scared them off from getting.
I would say the best play that I've seen from a misdirection standpoint, and Zevi barely got this ball into the end zone, was the first touchdown against Ole Miss, where they had Julian Duggar in the backfield. Why is there not? There doesn't seem to be a lot of motions. There doesn't seem to be a lot of misdirection. Mm-hmm. I mean, it just seems very vanilla. It's almost like the Samsung. Everybody's got the commercial. Everybody's got a vanilla ice cream as their phone as I sit here with an iPhone. But
there have been times this year where I've like kind of been like, okay, this is the vision for what we want to do. Like when we're moving the ball, it's like, okay, we want to, we want to run the ball, 55 to 60% of the time and use it to set up the pass and kind of dink and dunk. But I don't like, we never, we finally threw to a running back on Saturday, and it got called back on a hold. I think it was a screen pass, maybe to Maxwell Woods. Check me on that. But I was like, finally, like the one thing I loved about the Leach offense, which we haven't done.
Short passing game, yeah.
Yeah, well, or just using your backs to like pick up 4 or 5 yards. We don't.
Kirby Voorhees.
Yeah. We don't do that very well, for a number of years. And then there's like no passing game, I guess, over like we don't use the middle of the field at all. And I don't know if like that's because of Zevi's vision, not being able to see over the line. I'm not sure. Maybe just we're that weak at wide receiver, but like there's
capable guys to go over the middle. Yeah, Tony Freeman and Jeremiah Noga have been slot receivers their whole career.
Yeah. It's interesting too. Like our best offensive performance of the year was with Potter before he collapsed against North Texas, was against San Diego State. And I think he had completions that game to like, I think it was double-digit number of receivers. And it's just like, and then seeing like what we are now, there's just clearly we're still forming. It's a big shift going from like an air raid run and shoot team to like what this is. So we knew this year was going to be.
Yeah. 9 different receivers. That game, Josh Meredith had his highest target on the year, 10 targets, 8 receptions, 88 yards. Tony Freeman, 7 targets, 6 receptions.
Against a good defense. So like there's a capability there. I didn't think we were going to be that offense every week, but I would love to see, just some more nuance in the passing game a little bit. I love what they're doing with Voorhees.
Since 3 straight games with a touchdown now.
Yeah, he's awesome. I hope we can hold on to him. Woods looks okay.
They put Angel Johnson out in the slot also sometimes, which is intriguing. Like once you get him out in space, he can do stuff. He just can't run the ball through the offensive line.
Through the tackle.
He just can't break a tackle, unfortunately. It reminds me of like Jamal Murrow as like a freshman watching Angel Johnson. It's just like he's still small and like there's ability there, but it's not happening for him yet. And I don't know if it ever will at WSU for him because they're bringing in some running backs too. So
he's got 2 more games.
Yeah. And when they put him in I was at Marco Polo watching the game, and it was like it was just a collective groan when he got in for the goal line runs. It was
what are we doing?
Yeah, it was like I put in the smallest guy to run out of the shotgun.
Yelling at the TV.
Yeah,
yelling at the TV.
Same.
We've got 2 yards to gain. Leo had, I think, 4 or 5 carries up to that point, and everything was over 4 or 5 yards. He's been fantastic this season too, as kind of second fiddle to Kirby. But we'll get you out with a game score prediction. 13.5 points is being laid to WSU on the road against a Sun Belt team who has only played 2 opponents that are better than WSU's current ESPN FPI, which is at 68, Old Dominion and Louisville. Call me crazy. I think they're going to win this week. I'm hitting the money line. I don't care what anybody says. I just don't see this team, this roster, this staff, and Coach Rogers going out to the East Coast for a third time and coming back empty-handed, because you do not want 15 total hours of flights home with an L. I can only imagine what those plane trips were like back from Virginia and Ole Miss.
I think if I were hypothetically to gamble on this, I would buy the hook, as they say, and get it to 14 for WSU. 13.5 right now. If you can get that half point up and pay a few bucks, I would definitely do that. I haven't done like a deep dive. You'll be shocked to hear on James Madison. I know they have a good quarterback. He runs it too, which has been problematic for us historically. But I do think like our defense is like, they're consistently in the right spot. They hit hard. They're pretty healthy for this late in the season. I think they can keep us in the game. I think it's a game in the fourth quarter. I don't think the money line bet is crazy. I would probably sprinkle a little on it. You're going to get like at least 5. Exactly. You're going to get probably 5-1. And it'll just be a matter of, can our offense move the ball? Can they convert in the red zone? And sort of
keep it to third and manageable,
Yeah, keep it to third and manageable. Because I do feel like they are due to like break through in one of the bigger games against these good teams, because they've shown pretty much all year that they can hang with anyone other than, shockingly, North Texas. Love to know what happened there. I guess five turnovers, but
5.
For the most part, like Greg Woods wrote a good follow-up story to the game on Saturday. Like, don't take this defense for granted. Like, I don't think they'll be this good next year, because you got a bunch of fifth-year guys who just know the system, and it's jarring to watch for me after seeing so many defenses over the years that are not in the right place. All the
2019 UCLA game.
Oh God, yeah, and like even in the Apple Cup, like they were in the right place, and then it was just like Denzel Boston, like going Randy Moss on a guy, right? Or right. I mean, it was like
Jonah Coleman trucking 3 players.
Right. Or Coleman late in the game, sort of wearing us down. So I like, I like the fact that we, have something to play for still. We're trying to get bowl eligibility. We want to prove that we can win, I guess, on the East Coast. And just, I'm ready for like this season to like sort of, this has been a crazy year with going up to the East Coast 3 times and like playing Louisiana Tech and James Madison. Just like, I'm excited next year for the new
seeing the new Pac-12 and how much roster they can retain, who they can bring in the second year of the Rogers.
Well, let's also, one last thing. Before this season started, I don't think anybody thought that this schedule was going to be as fun as it was. So I want to give props to Ann McCoy and whoever else was involved in creating this schedule, because you ended up getting 3 ranked opponents in James Madison, Virginia, Ole Miss. Washington was ranked at one point. Toledo, not a bad game. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a bad schedule for having to play Oregon State twice and everything that we dealt with. This was a fun schedule this season.
Yeah, and they spaced it out well. It wasn't like Oregon State's where they had like all of it was like really front loaded with a bunch of tough teams.
Yeah.
And they were obviously they were put in the same situation as us. And then they started 0-whatever and fired their coach. And you've seen what's happened, sort of that whole athletic department. So
Rob Akey's big wristband of plays.
Yes. Hopefully we can take down Akey. If we can't beat Akey in late November, I'm gonna question everything.
I will be questioning it with you as well. I do not see that happening. I think WSU's got a good chance. They win this week, they will not lose the rest of the season, and they will finish 8-5. You heard that from me here first. Adam, thanks so much for jumping on with us. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Thank you.
Folks, thank you for joining another episode of Cougs on the Couch, presented by Coug Fan TV. We've got a special guest this morning, host of Fitz and Bill from 8 to 10 a.m. on ESPN Richmond, Jack Fitzpatrick, also the co-creator of JMU Sports News. Big one this weekend, non-conference slate late in the year. expecting a sellout. They already announced a sold out crowd. You know, how different is this for James Madison knowing, hey, 2 games left, you got a good shot at making the college football playoff, and you've got a Wazoo team coming in that, yeah, record's 5-5, but played Virginia tough, 2-point loss, 3-point loss at Ole Miss. What do you expect with just this game and the feel to it this weekend?
I think it's going to have a ton of big game feel around it because there's this Pac-12. I know the Pac-12 RIP. We all miss it here on the East Coast too. But you guys are one of the first power conference teams that have come into Bridgeforth in the history of Bridgeforth. And I know that's kind of up in the air with what I just said with the Pac-12 falling apart. But it's still this opportunity for a national brand to come into Bridgeforth, play JMU. And, oh, by the way, now the sights have been set onto the college football playoff because JMU has won the East, the Sun Belt East, and JMU likely will be hosting the Sun Belt Championship game regardless of what happens in that Coastal Carolina game at the end of the season. So the focus is now, if the Dukes win out, this is a huge opportunity for JMU to really solidify its spot in the college football playoff, especially the fact that you guys played, North Texas earlier this year, fell in that game, but it's an opportunity for JMU to have a similar data point against another team right there in the thick of the college football playoff running. So this game has a lot of big game feel around it. It's probably the biggest game being played inside of Bridgeforth Stadium since App State in 2023. That game coincidentally had game day associated with it. It was an overtime loss for JMU that dashed a lot of postseason hopes. There was a lawsuit at the time kind of floating around the team because they were ineligible to play in the postseason, but the Virginia Attorney General was threatening a lawsuit against the NCAA. Super fun times. But that game had this huge feel around it. Similarly here for Washington State, especially because it's Marvel Day. It's the final home game.
Yeah.
Official home game of the season. So there's a lot of subplots going into it as well.
And one more thing. I just wanted to preface James Madison, because this is now year 4 as a Division I program, or is it year 5?
21. No, was it 22, 23, 24? This is year 4. I have to count on my fingers.
So Coach Sig obviously resurrects this program. Take us from when Coach Sig got here to now transferring to Coach Chesney.
So to rewind it even a little bit further back, JMU won a national championship. I think it was in 2004. Then Mickey Matthews was the coach during that one. And up until, I want to say 2013, 2012, he left the program. He kind of got ushered out. It was a mutual agreement to leave the program. And then Everett Withers steps in, and he kind of almost in a way brings JMU back onto the FCS national stage. Lays way to Mike Houston, who came in, won a national championship, took down North Dakota State at their place, a huge FCS upset at the time, won the Natty. Then he kind of fizzled out there at the end. Kurt Signetti came in, took over, and immediately brought them back to FCS kind of powerhouses. Then the announcement was made in, I think it was 2020, 2021, that they were making the move over to the Sun Belt. And he immediately had them extremely competitive year 1. Middle Tennessee was the first game that JMU played, blew the doors off of them, and really laid a good FBS foundation. Or I guess you could argue the foundation was laid by Mickey Matthews into Everett Withers into Mike Houston, and then Signetti built a beautiful house on top of that foundation that was laid, and walked in was Bob Chesney, and all he had to do was furnish the dang thing, and he furnished it exceptionally well. Maybe a couple of bad decisions here and there stylistically. Year 1, they kind of start off red hot, then they falter down the stretch. I'm going 4-4 in Sun Belt play. But now this year, I mean, he's got the right paintings on the wall. He has the nice feng shui going on to keep this house analogy rolling along even further. And he's got them cooking and shows off why he was, I think, a lot of fans' first pick, was one of the hottest names on the coaching market in 2020. What was that, 2023, heading into 2024 season. So Chesney's done a fantastic job of kind of maintaining the success that JMU has built since around 2012, 2013.
and kind of keeping it on the upward trajectory that it's been on.
And then walk us through this season so far. It looks like JMU on average is winning at home by 30.8 points. They're led by quarterback Alonzo Barnett III, who is 8th most points in the country, 168 total points, 16 passing touchdowns, 12 rushing touchdowns. Walk us through some of the key players on this team.
Yeah, so Alonzo Barnett has been kind of a you love him and you hate him at times. He started this year off, I mean, I'll be honest, downright bad. He tore his ACL. He tore his ACL final game of the regular season last year. And then 9 months to the day, he was starting week 1 this year. And one that is, you just said, wow, it's mind blowing, right? Like that's superhuman bounce back ability to come back from a torn ACL in 9 months. He was not cleared for contact until the week before the opening game. And it showed. Like the team, I think, would say, no, he was healthy. No, it's good. And they deny. But if you look at the numbers through weeks 1, the first, second, third, fourth game, 5th game of the year, he was fine, if not verging on bad. And it was capped off with a 74-yard performance against Georgia State, who's one of the worst teams in the FBS. And JMU squeaked out of Atlanta with a 14-7 win, and the offense was abysmal. Since then, Alonzo Barnett has been, according to PFF grades, according to the eye test, according to stats, he's been the best quarterback in the Sun Belt. Like something changed after that game against Georgia State, and he has become Superman, running the ball extremely well, passing the ball really well. And they really opened things up by incorporating the deep ball into the playbook, incorporating play action a little bit more, and getting Alonzo Barnett III opportunities to get positive plays and get the rhythm and get the momentum of a game going. And he's been fantastic. Other guys you got to keep a lookout for on the offensive side. There's Wayne Knight. He's a running back. He's been fantastic. It's kind of funny because we always joke around. In 2023, in Signetti's last year at JMU, he entered the transfer portal midseason. He left the team. He was in the portal midseason. Chesney somehow gets him back. And he was RB4 at one point last year, and now he has a case to be made that he's Sun Belt Offensive Player of the Year. He can pass, he can catch, he can block, and he can run his tail off, and he has extreme top end speed. And then across the wide receivers, Nick DeGennaro and Landon Ellis. Ellis is questionable for this game. It was just announced in a press conference earlier that Chesney said that Ellis has been in a boot and that he expects him to play, but he's not 100% certain. So Landon Ellis's status is up in the air, but him and Nick DeGennaro are 2 transfers from Richmond, which is an FCS school here in Virginia. And they've been massive players, but they're getting passing, receiving production from almost all of their guys in the receiving room. And that was a real point of emphasis in the offseason, was to go out and pick up a lot of high-end wide receivers. So the offense is cooking. And then defensively, they're manned by the guy in the middle, Trent Hendrick. He has a case to be made for Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year. He's grown every season, and this year he's a real sideline to sideline type of linebacker who can come downhill with authority. And he's backed up with one of the best safeties in the Sun Belt in Jacob Thomas, and the whole front defensive line, the front 4, have been monsters, just kind of rotating out and got some deep guys down there as well. So it's a really well balanced team that has found their rhythm as of late, because when they started the year, it looked a little disjointed at times. But here over the last month and a half, they've looked like world beaters in a college football playoff team.
Dylan, I have one more thing on Barnett real quick. Yeah. So first off, this is from a Coug fan article, but it seems like 14 out of 84 of Alonzo Barnett's rushing attempts are scrambles. So does that mean that we're going to be expected to see a good amount of design quarterback runs?
Yeah, you'll see a lot of design quarterback runs, and Barnett is a mobile quarterback who doesn't like to run. And by that, I mean, he doesn't necessarily scramble to run. And if there is a deficiency in his game, and I use that word loosely, it's not saying like, oh, there's this huge issue in his game, but there is a problem at times when he may not feel the pressure where he might be able to scramble, get out of the pocket and pick up some positive yards. Mm-hmm. Sometimes he doesn't feel that pressure and he gets knocked. Or sometimes he lacks lateral quickness, And, it might be because less than a year ago, he tore his ACL. I don't know. I've never torn my ACL.
Might play a factor.
Yeah, it might play a factor that he kind of lacks lateral quickness at times. So we know when the pressure gets there, he might try to avoid it, but he ends up taking sacks. Not as high of a clip as he did last year, but you'd think a guy who has so many designed runs, and I think over the last couple of games has double-digit rushing touchdowns, you'd think he'd be like one of the league's best scramblers, but he's just not, and most of his yardage and most of his touchdowns will come on designed QB reads, read options, or just QB draws.
Another interesting name in that quarterback room is Matthew Sluka, and taking a look at Coach Chesney's past at Holy Cross, I didn't realize that they actually played Jimmy Rogers when he was a defensive coordinator at South Dakota State in 2022 in a quarterfinal matchup that was won by South Dakota State 42-21. But he is the backup there, and famously last season took off from the UNLV program because of NIL issues. So a bit surprising to see that Sluka ended up there. Coach Rogers in his press conference too said, hey, that is a really good quarterback, and for him to be QB2 speaks volumes on QB1 there. So Sluka, 250 rushing yards. Does he have some of his own packages? I've noticed some of his plays kind of curtailed lately.
Yeah, he was a pretty big point of emphasis for the offense early on, probably with the largest usage rate coming in week 2 against Louisville. Since then, though, his usage has curtailed off, and I think it's because the 2 quarterback system just really was not working. What they would use it for was Alonzo was kind of like your prototypical QB, and then you'd bring Sluka in, and they would just run QB power with Sluka time and time and time again, and it became very predictable. And defenses, smartly enough, because this is Division I college football, realized, when Sluka is in, they're passing it, they're running it, like 95% of the time. So you know what we're going to do? Dare them to pass it. We're going to put all 11 guys in the box. And they just never really opened it up. And with his usage rate going down, it aligned with Alonzo's performance increasing and getting better and better. So kind of over the last couple of weeks, Sluka is just kind of become the QB2 who hardly gets used.
The defense coming in 42.5 points is what our over-under is for Saturday. And WSU over the last 6 games, is it 7 games, 6 touchdowns, Connor?
The past 6 games, they've allowed 7 total touchdowns.
Defense has been on it. The offense is another story. But when you take a look at just some of the stats, passing yards per game, WSU 14th in the nation, JMU 13th in the nation. Difference of 1.9 yards there. Rushing yards per game, WSU 48th in the nation, JMU very stout, 7th in the nation with the rushing defense. And then points allowed, WSU 34th in the nation at 21, and JMU 11th in the nation at 16.2. And boy, WSU had 2 59-point losses early on this year, 59-10 to North Texas, which is obviously kind of the aligner there with JMU and North Texas's college football playoff hopes. But what's to be said about JMU's defense, and where are they most stout? Is it the trenches, the middle level, or the secondary?
I mean, yes, the defense has been playing exceptionally well. The advanced numbers kind of indicate that they're a lot better at stopping the run than they are at stopping the pass. But I say that I'm a big proponent in what I lovingly call nerd numbers, expected points added, success rate, things of that sort. JMU ranks 9th in the nation in EPA allowed per rush, negative 0.126. So that essentially says that on a per play basis, on a per rush basis against this JMU team, you're essentially taking points off of the board because of the negative plays that they're able to generate. But not to be outdone, they rank 21st in the nation in EPA allowed per dropback. So the numbers say they're better at stopping the run, but they're very good at doing both. And it's a testament to what Colin Hitchler has done, the defensive coordinator. He came in after spending last year as a co-DC, one of 3 co-DCs. Very interesting setup that Kalen DeBoer had down there in Alabama. But Hitchler's a guy who's worked with Luke Fickell. He coached Sauce Gardner at Cincinnati, Kobe Bryant at Cincinnati, and has really kind of erupted them at JMU into one of the more dominant, violent, talking with them preseason, violence was a word that they used a lot, and that's kind of how this defense plays. So they're going to stop you on the ground, and then they're going to have you run, but teams just they're going to stop you on the ground, then they're going to make you pass, and teams have struggled with that because they're able to generate pressure and just kind of push QBs off their spot.
This matchup was added right at a year ago to both of their schedules, and Washington State has been adding first-time opponents like basically every game this year with all of the different conferences that they're visiting. What was the initial reaction once you saw Washington State added to JMU's schedule?
It was wow. Like kind of like what I was saying at the beginning. This is the first like big name, high profile power conference team that's come into Bridgeforth ever since I mean, granted, this is year 4 of the FBS, so it's not like they were coming in during our FCS time. It's not like we were hosting Virginia Tech and things of that sort. You could argue that some of the playoff games that brought South Dakota State in, they were FCS national powers coming into Bridgeforth. But from an FBS perspective, this is the first big name, like big nationally recognized name that's coming in because you go up to a fan on the street and you go, "Do you know Middle Tennessee? Have you ever heard of them? Like, can you name their mascot?" Well,
Blue
no.
Raiders.
The Blue Raiders. Heck yeah. But if you go up to a fan on the street, just a casual, have you heard of Washington State? Like fans are all like, "Yeah." And so
Crimson?
yeah, I've seen the flag on game day. What do you mean? And so like this is so when that kind of came across, and then even seeing it additionally where it was like, I don't think there's a return game on this. I think this is a one-off, one game thing. And I think additionally, JMU was like, wait, we have the cachet now in the country to sign just games, one-off games with these big conferences, these big brands. Now, of course, it's an interesting scenario because being the Pac-2, you guys are playing Oregon State twice. So I imagine that plays a part of it where there was a kind of a desperation from the Washington State side to fill out a schedule. So JMU obviously took advantage of that. But it was kind of a shocking, whoa, this is going to be fun.
I wanted to just jump into Coach Chesney. I watched his full press conference yesterday, and WSU has been known to somewhat be a school that a head coach will come into and launch his career, and it is for better or for worse. I didn't hear one single question about perhaps one of the top coaching carousel candidates in the country, a Pennsylvania guy. I mean, there's been some links to Penn State, but UCLA is a hard link. You have Rick Neuheisel on CBS nationally saying that Bob Chesney is the number one coaching target. I mean, kind of dive into that. Has the JMU media been walking on eggshells with this question, or is it something that's been asked?
I haven't heard it asked. So your guess is as good as mine over there, Dylan. I mean, I've not heard it asked. I would love for it to be asked, but I think there is a little bit of walking on eggshells at times. But yeah, I mean, right now they are very focused. What every coach cliche is. We're focused on the here and now. Or it's one game at a time. My focus is entirely on this team that we have together. But I mean, there was the post that linked him. I think Fox, College Football Fox, or someone, quoted the hard link as well because Neuheisel said it on CBS. But then I think Fox then goes on and, here we are in 2025. You got to look into who's liking things and who's sharing what. Alonzo Barnett III, the quarterback of JMU, liked the post that said Bob Chesney is linked heavily to UCLA. So
he's a junior.
Who knows what that means, but that's out there. So it is interesting because JMU fans are kind of working under the assumption that he will not be back next year. That's kind of been an accepted truth to this all. And it was kind of accepted when he was hired as well. I mean, here's this guy who's in his mid 40s, if I'm not mistaken. And I apologize to Coach Chesney if I aged him a little bit there, but in his 40s at some point in it, he's one of the young, hottest names on the market. There was a point after JMU beat UNC last year that people were like, is he gone after just 1 year in Harrisonburg? Ends up, he kind of falters down the stretch, goes 4-4, blows a couple of double-digit leads in the second half of the season, sticks around for another year, and now it feels like, JMU has done something they've never done in program history, win the Sun Belt East. They did it in year 4 of the FBS, and now it just feels like, well, If it's not Penn State, if it's not UCLA, well, who are they hiring from? They're going to poach from another school. And let's say John Summerall from Tulane ends up leaving Tulane. Tulane might be a fit for Bob Chesney because at the end of the day, we'll say it how it is. JMU does not pay their coaches a whole heck of a lot. I believe last time I checked, Chesney was the second lowest paid coach in the Sun Belt, above only ULM's Brian Vincent. Now, it's kind of known that you come to JMU, you can ball out. You're going to have the NIL. You're going to have the top facilities in the Sun Belt. You're going to have a good assistant coach staff pool, like salary pool to dip into. But you're just not going to be the highest paid, but you're going to get paid at your next stop if you have success here. So I think that's kind of how it's all going into it. And I think JMU fans kind of have that understanding that, Chesney's probably gone in a month and a half.
Last question for me. Game time, 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, this coming Saturday at Bridgeport Stadium, here, Harrisonburg, Virginia. For the Cougs fans that are going to be traveling out for this game, they've traveled all throughout the country so far this year. What is the game day experience at JMU for a football game?
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of drinking. JMU's a good party school. When I go to games, there's this parking lot called Festival Parking Lot. It's free parking. It's about probably 3/4 of a mile away from the stadium, but it's always a good time. People have pitched up their tents, and I mean, you're in the mountains. JMU essentially is the city. So JMU is massive. It spans across an interstate, and there's parking and partying going on across the entire campus. If you're nice enough and you smile enough, I would bet that on your walk into the stadium, a drunken JMU fan will ask you to shotgun with them. We'll ask you to do a shot ski with them.
There we go.
And just do things like that. But it's a very fun game day atmosphere. And I would say 95% of the JMU fans are very nice. And unfortunately, like every fan base, you got some of the crazies out there, but if odds are you're going to have a good time, and hopefully it's a great game. And there's going to be a lot of Marvel connections for some reason that we're all still trying to get to the bottom of why JMU will have Marvel superheroes on their helmets.
My last question for you, a little bit tougher. JMU's strength of schedule this season, 119th, WSU 55th. JMU has only played 2 teams higher than WSU currently, 68th overall in ESPN's FPI, losing to Louisville and beating Old Dominion. And Old Dominion, I believe, 64, WSU 68. I'm a little surprised to see that WSU is getting 13.5 points this weekend. Granted, it is a road game, but are you a bit surprised by that number? And just kind of taking a look at the strength of schedule, it is a bit truthful to say that JMU hasn't played the schedule that WSU has this season.
Yeah, and then there are, of course, the strength of record numbers as well, where JMU ranks 24th, Washington State ranks 70th. You look at some of the nerd numbers that I was citing earlier in terms of EPA per pass, per dropback. The matchups don't necessarily favor, in my opinion, from what I've seen and kind of the numbers, the matchups don't necessarily favor the Cougars too much because they've struggled passing. They've got a negative 0.047 EPA per dropback, 85th in the nation, fine at running the football, but the offense may just struggle to move the football against JMU's defense. There is a stretch there for 3 or 4 games where JMU's defense didn't allow a single point in the second half. And so pair that with JMU's offense on an absolute heater. A lot of the advanced metrics too also put this at around a 13.5 point spread. Now, with that being said, and it's not just because I'm on a Washington State podcast here, there is a genuine worry, at least from this JMU fan, because of what you said at the start. Close game against UVA, close game against Ole Miss. Yeah, there's been a couple of blowouts in there, but JMU also laid an absolute egg against Georgia State. So every team's got outliers. It's just, how do you respond to the outlier games? Unfortunately for Washington State, it's been losses. Luckily for JMU, it's been wins. So I think Washington State is a capable team, but I think a cross-country road trip makes it really difficult. And JMU, despite having a poor strength of schedule, has destroyed their opponents this year. I
They
mean,
have.
just look at last week. They outgained App State by 500 yards. That's another FBS program that they outgained by 500 yards. So
I think they had like 70 yards of total offense near the end of the fourth quarter. But long-winded answer, what is your final score this weekend?
I'm going to go 42-28 JMU.
Wow, 28 points.
42
for
points.
Wazoo.
Yeah, that's surprising.
All right. Well, Jack, thank you so much for dropping by. And where can we take a look at your work for JMU?
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys so much for having me on. You can find everything that we're doing at JMU Sports News, and you can also follow along with my stuff at FITZ all the way, Fits all the way.
Awesome. Thank you. Jack Fitzpatrick joining us from JMU Sports Now and ESPN Richmond. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to a 10 a.m. Pacific time start, a 1 p.m. Eastern time start. Number 21 JMU hosting Washington State. Thanks so much, Jack.